Have you ever stopped to think about what your mind actually does when it's under pressure? You know, when stress or guilt or just plain fear comes knocking? Well, it turns out our minds have this secret toolkit, a whole set of powerful, unconscious strategies it uses to protect itself. So let's dive in and take a look at this hidden world of psychological defense. So, what are we actually talking about here? The official term is defense mechanism. The guy who came up with all this, Sigmund Freud, he basically saw these as the ego's secret survival tricks. They kick in whenever there's a big fight between what we deeply desire, what our conscience tells us is right, and what's actually happening in the real world. By bending reality just a little bit, they give us a chance to catch our breath. Okay, we're going to break this toolkit down into a few different categories. First up, the hiding and blaming tools. These are all about dodging difficult truths, either by burying them deep underground or by making them someone else's problem entirely. Let's start with the big one, repression. You can think of this as the ego's #1 move, the old hide it in the basement trick. It's when your mind takes a painful memory or a thought it doesn't like and just shoves it so deep into your unconscious that you don't even know it's there anymore. But here's the kicker. Even when it's hidden, it can still be pulling the strings from behind the curtain. This is just a perfect illustration. The cat has zero conscious memory of that terrifying bath. It's been completely repressed. But the fear? Oh, the fear is still there, isn't it? It dictates the cat's behavior every single time it hears a faucet turn on. The memory might be gone, but the feeling is very much alive. All right, next up we have denial. Now, if repression is burying a memory so deep you forget it, denial is looking at a reality that's staring you right in the face and just refusing to see it. It's the mind putting its hands over its ears and simply saying, nope, that is not happening, just to shield us from a shock. I mean, just picture this. A cat is staring at a completely empty food bowl, but instead of meowing or looking for food, it just sits there, patiently, acting as if the food is going to magically appear any second. That's denial in a nutshell, refusing to accept a simple, hard truth that's right there in front of you. And now for projection. This one is a really fascinating psychological blame-shifting game. Instead of owning up to an uncomfortable thought or feeling, you just pin it on someone else. It's the ultimate, whoa, I'm not thinking that, but I bet you are, kind of defense. And you can see it right here. The cat has this mischievous impulse, right? It wants to cause some chaos, but it can't accept that about itself, so what does it do? It glances over at the totally innocent dog and projects its own bad intentions, thinking, look at that guy, he's definitely up to no good. Let's move on to our next set of tools in the kit. And this is where things get a bit more creative. These are the shifting and changing mechanisms. These don't just hide impulses, they actually redirect them, transform them, or in some cases, flip them completely on their head. First in this group is displacement. And oh boy, we have all felt this one. You are absolutely furious with your boss, but you can't scream at them, can you? That's the dangerous target. So you go home and you snap at your partner, or maybe slam a door. That's the safer target. You're just shifting that raw emotion somewhere else. It's exactly like our cat here. It's annoyed with its owner, but it knows it can't lash out at the person who feeds it. So it finds a safe place to put all that frustration, that poor, unsuspecting toy mouse. The feeling is identical, it's just the target that's changed. Now, for what Freud thought was the most mature, the healthiest defense of all, sublimation. This is basically the art of taking raw, intense, sometimes chaotic energy, like aggression or passion, and channeling it into something productive and socially acceptable. It's literally turning messy chaos into creativity or hard work. Think about a cat that just has this incredibly powerful hunting instinct. Instead of tearing up the house, it channels all of that focused energy into intensely playing with a string toy. Sublimation turns what could be a really destructive drive into a harmless and honestly pretty fun activity. Reaction formation. This is where the ego really goes for it and just flips the script entirely. When your true feelings feel way too dangerous or unacceptable, you slap on an emotional disguise and act in the exact opposite way. You might mask intense dislike with over-the-top kindness. So imagine this cat feels real hostility toward the other cat in the house. But instead of hissing or fighting, it goes into this overdrive of affection, constantly grooming the other cat, rubbing up against it. It's this wild performance designed to hide its true feelings, maybe even from itself.
Okay, on to our final toolkit, the excusing and rewinding mechanisms. These are the clever strategies our minds use to justify our actions, or when things get really tough, to just hit the rewind button and go back to a simpler time.
You ever made an excuse that sounded really, really smart? Well, that's rationalization. It's when you do something for a reason you're not exactly proud of, and then your mind just brilliantly cooks up a perfectly logical sounding explanation to make you feel better about the whole thing. This is the absolute classic sour grapes scenario. The cat desperately wanted that bird, but it failed. So to protect its ego from the sting of that failure, it rationalizes. It walks away with its head held high as if to say, "Piffed, I didn't really want it. I was just playing." The excuse saves its pride.
Next up is regression. When adult life just feels like too much, sometimes the mind hits the escape hatch and goes back to behaviors from childhood, a time that felt a lot safer. You can really just think of it as your ego activating baby mode to cope with stress. Think about it. You've got this confident adult cat, and suddenly it's faced with something stressful, like a new person in the house. Instantly, it regresses, hiding under the bed, meowing for comfort, doing all the things it did when it was a tiny, helpless kitten. And finally, fixation. Now, where regression is like a temporary trip to the past, fixation is more about getting permanently stuck there. This happens when some conflict at an early stage of our development never really gets resolved, so a part of our personality just doesn't grow up with the rest of us. So how does this actually look? Well, an early life event can create a trait that lasts a lifetime. Maybe the cat's need for comfort from nursing wasn't met at the right time, so it gets fixated. And now, as a full-grown cat, it's still seeking that comfort by chewing on blankets, a behavior that's literally locked in from its past. So, after all that, are these mechanisms good or bad? Well, the real answer is they're both. In the short term, they can be incredibly helpful. They act like a cushion, they lower our anxiety, and they help us cope. But if we lean on them too much, they stop being useful tools and they become more like a broken filter that distorts our view of reality and can actually stop us from growing. And that, of course, brings us to the final question. Now that you've seen the whole secret toolkit laid out, it's kind of worth thinking about your own patterns, right? When you're feeling cornered, what does your mind do? Which one of these unconscious tools does your ego reach for most often?